Imagine waking up to find that your closest ally just declared an economic war on you. That's exactly what happened when Trump slapped massive tariffs on Canada, and Trudeau hit back hard. But is this just politics, or is there a bigger game at play? Buckle up, because we're breaking down this high-stakes showdown like never before. 1. Economic consequences of tariffs and retaliation. Tariffs are double-edged swords. While intended to protect domestic industries, they often lead to higher costs for consumers and businesses. Trump's 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports, alongside increased levies on Chinese goods, triggered immediate retaliation from affected countries. Canada, Mexico, and China responded with counter-tariffs, exacerbating tensions and shaking investor confidence. For Canada, these tariffs hit critical sectors, including energy and manufacturing, increasing costs for businesses reliant on cross-border trade. Retaliatory tariffs on over $100 billion worth of American goods further escalated the conflict, impacting key U.S. exports. The economic interdependence of North America makes prolonged trade wars harmful to both sides. Prices of goods are expected to rise in the U.S. and Canada, reducing purchasing power for consumers. Additionally, such trade disputes often lead to market uncertainty. Stock markets reacted negatively, with financial volatility affecting investments and business expansion. While the goal of tariffs is to boost domestic industry, the real impact often leads to supply chain disruptions and unintended consequences that hurt both economies. 2. Geopolitical implications and Russia's role. Trudeau's criticism of Trump's approach highlights a broader geopolitical concern: the contrasting treatment of allies versus adversaries. While launching a trade war against Canada, historically one of America's closest partners, Trump appeared more conciliatory toward Russia, sparking questions about the US's strategic priorities. The accusations of appeasing Vladimir Putin reflect long-standing concerns about Trump's stance toward Russia, especially given the latter's reputation as a geopolitical rival to the West. By imposing tariffs on allies while seeking closer ties with Russia, Trump's actions fueled debates over whether U.S. foreign policy was shifting away from traditional alliances. This strategy could have long-term effects on global diplomacy. If allies like Canada and Mexico perceive the U.S. as unreliable, it could weaken North America's cooperative frameworks, such as USMCA, formerly NAFTA. It may also push these nations to strengthen economic ties with other global players, potentially reducing U.S. influence in trade negotiations. 3. Political motivations and nationalist rhetoric. Trump's justification for the tariffs aligns with his "America First" agenda, aiming to protect domestic industries, preserve manufacturing jobs, and curb illegal migration and drug trafficking. His claim that these measures would prevent the influx of fentanyl into the U.S. was refuted by Trudeau, who argued that Canada is not a significant source of the opioid crisis. The tariff move appears to be a political strategy aimed at rallying nationalist support ahead of elections. Protectionist trade policies often appeal to certain voter bases that feel economically sidelined by globalization. By framing tariffs as a defense against unfair trade practices, Trump reinforced his image as a champion of American workers. However, this strategy comes with risks. If tariffs lead to inflation and job losses in sectors dependent on international trade, domestic discontent could grow. Additionally, Canada's strong pushback, including Trudeau's fiery response, suggests that nationalist rhetoric on both sides may further entrench hostilities rather than lead to constructive negotiations. 4. Threat to U.S.-Canada relations and economic integration. The U.S. and Canada share one of the world's most integrated trade relationships, with millions of jobs dependent on cross-border trade. The imposition of tariffs and subsequent retaliation threaten to disrupt this economic synergy. Trudeau's defiant remarks, including his assertion that Canada will never be the 51st state, highlight a growing frustration with the Trump administration's approach. His emphasis on a relentless fight to protect Canada's economy signals a shift from traditional diplomatic negotiations to a more confrontational stance. A breakdown in US-Canada trade relations could have lasting economic consequences, especially given the deeply interconnected nature of industries such as automotive, agriculture, and energy. The USMCA agreement, which was meant to stabilize North American trade, could be undermined if both countries continue escalating their economic conflict. In the long term, this dispute could encourage Canada to diversify its trade relationships, reducing its reliance on the US market. Increased trade partnerships with the European Union and Asia might emerge as a counterbalance, shifting global economic dynamics. 5. Impact on global trade and economic stability. Trade wars have ripple effects beyond the immediate participants, affecting global supply chains and economic stability. Since Canada, Mexico, and China are among the US's top trading partners, disruptions in these relationships could slow global trade flows. Tariffs often lead to increased production costs, which can make goods more expensive and reduce competitiveness in global markets. Businesses in multiple countries could face uncertainty in supply chains, leading to lower investments and slower economic growth. Beyond economic impacts, there are diplomatic consequences. Countries affected by US tariffs may seek alternative trade agreements, strengthening economic alliances outside of US influence. This could accelerate a shift towards multipolar global trade, where countries rely less on the US as a central economic player. Ultimately, prolonged trade wars rarely have clear winners. While they may provide short-term protection to domestic industries, they often lead to higher costs for businesses and consumers, economic uncertainty, and strained diplomatic relations. If both sides fail to reach a resolution, the broader global economy could suffer from prolonged instability. Conclusion: this conflict reflects broader themes of economic nationalism, shifting geopolitical alliances, and the unintended consequences of protectionist policies. While Trump's tariffs aim to strengthen American industries, they risk economic retaliation that could harm both the US and its key partners. Trudeau's strong response underscores the deepening fractures in North American relations. Moving forward, the resolution of this trade dispute will depend on diplomatic negotiations and economic pragmatism rather than political rhetoric. If you love deep, unbiased political and economic analysis, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Don't miss out on the real stories behind global power plays.